The turkey was still warm when I saw the first photo. I'd cooked it out of habit, I suppose. 43 years of making Christmas dinner, and my hands just knew what to do even when my heart wasn't sure anyone was coming to eat it. I was sitting at my kitchen table, the one where my children had eaten breakfast for 2 decades, scrolling through Facebook the way lonely people do on holidays. Looking for connection. Looking for something to make the silence feel less heavy. And there it was, right at the top of my feed. My daughter-in-law Megan had posted an album. 23 photos. The caption read, "Best Christmas ever. So grateful for family and new traditions. Christmas tree red heart." I clicked on it. I don't know why. Some part of me already knew what I was going to see. There was my son Brian, wearing a red sweater I'd never seen before. There was my granddaughter Sophie, now 11, opening a present in front of a tree I didn't recognize. There was my grandson Lucas, 8 years old, laughing with frosting on his face from cookies I didn't bake. There was Megan's mother, Janet, sitting in what was clearly the seat of honor, surrounded by my grandchildren. My family. My blood. Everyone was there. Brian's sister, my daughter Kristen, was there. My son-in-law Mark was there. Even my ex-husband's brother showed up in the background of one photo, and I haven't spoken to him in 15 years. Everyone was there except me. I stared at my phone until the screen went dark. Then I looked up at my dining room table, set for 12 people who were never going to walk through my door. The good china. The cloth napkins. The centerpiece I'd spent $40 on because I wanted it to be special. And in the oven, a 22-pound turkey that no one was coming to eat. I think that was the moment something broke inside me. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet snap, like a thread that's been pulled too tight for too long finally giving way. My name is Virginia. Most people call me Ginny. I'm 68 years old, and until this Christmas, I thought I knew what family meant. I need to take you back, because this didn't happen overnight. Nothing ever does. The cracks were forming for years, and I either didn't see them or didn't want to. I raised 2 children in this house. Brian came first, then Kristen 3 years later. My husband Tom and I built our life here, brick by brick, memory by memory. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Tom worked at the electric company for 31 years, and I worked part-time at the elementary school library until the kids were grown, then full-time until I retired. Christmas was always my holiday. From the day after Thanksgiving until December 25th, this house transformed. Tom used to joke that I should charge admission. Every surface had decorations. Every corner had memories. And on Christmas Day, everyone came here. That was just how it was. My parents came when they were alive. Tom's parents came when they were alive. Our siblings, their children, the whole extended family. And when Brian and Kristen got married and had kids of their own, they came too. This was headquarters. This was home. Tom passed away 6 years ago. Heart attack, sudden, the kind that doesn't give you time to say goodbye. One morning he was complaining about heartburn, and by that evening I was picking out caskets. That's how fast life can change. After Tom died, Christmas became even more important to me. It was the one time I could gather everyone together, see my grandchildren's faces, feel like I still mattered. The house was too quiet the rest of the year, but at Christmas, it came alive again. I had purpose. I had a role. I was still grandma, still the center of something. Then Brian married Megan. I want to be fair. I really do. Megan isn't a bad person. She's not cruel or mean-spirited in obvious ways. She's just particular. She has opinions about everything, how children should be raised, what foods are acceptable, which traditions are meaningful and which are outdated. When she first joined the family, I tried to welcome her. I tried to adapt. When she said she preferred Thanksgiving at her parents' house, I said that was fine. When she mentioned that my Christmas cookies had too much sugar for the kids, I found new recipes. When she suggested that maybe the grandchildren didn't need so many presents from Grandma, I scaled back. I kept giving ground because I wanted peace. I wanted Brian to be happy. I wanted access to those grandchildren more than I wanted to be right. But here's what I've learned about giving ground. Some people don't see it as generosity. They see it as weakness. They see it as permission to take more. The changes happened gradually. First, Christmas morning was no longer at my house. Megan wanted the kids to wake up in their own beds, which made sense. So they'd come to me for Christmas dinner instead. Then Christmas dinner got pushed to late afternoon because Megan's family wanted lunch. Then late afternoon became early evening. Then 1 year, 3 years ago, Brian called on December 23rd to say they'd be coming on the 26th instead because Megan's mother was having a hard time and needed them on Christmas Day. I said I understood. I said we could celebrate whenever. I spent Christmas Day that year alone, watching old movies and pretending the silence didn't hurt. But they always came eventually. Even if it was late, even if it was brief, they came. I could handle that. I could adapt. This year, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there. In October, Kristen mentioned that Megan was talking about creating new traditions for the kids. She thinks they need experiences, Mom, not just sitting around at Grandma's house. Kristen rolled her eyes when she said it, but she also didn't push back. That should have told me something. In November, I asked Brian what time everyone was coming for Christmas dinner. He was vague. We're still figuring things out, Mom. I'll let you know. He never let me know. I asked again 2 weeks before Christmas. He said he'd talk to Megan and get back to me. He never got back to me. I told myself not to worry. I told myself that of course they were coming. They always came. This was Christmas. This was tradition. This was family. On December 23rd, I called Brian directly. Megan answered his phone. "Oh, Ginny," she said, and something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "I thought Brian talked to you. We're doing something different this year. My mom's been struggling since my dad's surgery, and we thought it would be nice to have Christmas at their place. Give the kids a chance to be with their other grandparents, you know." "What about coming to my house?" I asked. My voice sounded small even to my own ears. "I just don't think it's going to work this year. The kids have so much going on, and the drive to your place is really hard on them. Maybe we can do something in January." "What about Kristen?" I asked. "Is she going to your mother's house too?" There was a pause. A long one. "I think you should talk to Kristen about her plans," Megan said. "I really have to go, Ginny. Merry Christmas." She hung up. She didn't say she was sorry. She didn't acknowledge that she was telling me, 2 days before Christmas, that I'd be spending the holiday alone. She just hung up. I called Kristen. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding flustered. "Mom, I was going to call you. Things are just complicated this year." "Are you going to Megan's mother's house?" I asked. Silence. Then, Brian asked if we could come. For the kids, you know. So Sophie and Lucas could have their cousins there. And Mark's parents are going to their winter place, so we didn't have conflicts, and... She trailed off. "So everyone's going," I said. "Everyone except me." "Mom, don't make this harder than it needs to be. You could come too, probably. I'm sure if you asked. I'm not going to beg for an invitation to spend Christmas with my own grandchildren, Kristen." "That's not what I meant. I have to go," I said. And I hung up. I should have cried then. I think that's what normal people do when their hearts are breaking. But I didn't cry. I just stood in my kitchen, looking at the calendar on my wall, looking at December 25th circled in red with "Christmas dinner, family," written inside in my careful handwriting. Then I started cooking. Because that's what I know how to do. Because stopping felt like giving up. Christmas morning came, cold and grey. I woke up at 6, the way I always do. I put on coffee. I turned on the Christmas music. I pretended this was a normal year, that any minute the door would open and small feet would come running in, and voices would fill the silence. By noon, the turkey was in the oven. By 2, the side dishes were prepped. By 4, I was sitting at my perfectly set table, scrolling through Facebook, and discovering that my entire family was having Christmas without me. The photos kept coming. Every hour, it seemed, Megan posted more. The gift exchange. The Christmas dinner, ham, not turkey, at a table where Janet sat at the head. The kids playing with new toys. A group photo where everyone smiled and no one seemed to notice who was missing. I zoomed in on that group photo. I studied their faces. Brian looked happy. Kristen was laughing at something. My grandchildren, all 4 of them, were grinning. They didn't look like they were missing their grandmother. They didn't look like there was an empty space where I should have been. Maybe there wasn't. That thought was the worst one. The idea that I wasn't missing from their Christmas. I was simply not needed for it. That they could have just as much joy, just as much family, just as much meaning, without me there. I sat with that thought for a long time. At some point, I got up and covered the food. I put the turkey in the refrigerator. I blew out the candles. I took off my nice dress and put on my bathrobe. And then, finally, I cried. I cried for Tom, who would never have let this happen. I cried for the mother I used to be, when my children needed me and my presence was non-negotiable. I cried for 43 years of Christmas dinners that apparently meant nothing. And I cried for myself, this 68-year-old woman sitting alone in a too-big house, discovering through social media that she'd been erased from her own family. The days between Christmas and New Year's passed in a blur. I didn't call anyone. No one called me. The silence was absolute, and I let it swallow me. Then, on December 30th, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I'd barely gotten dressed in days. But something made me go to the door, and when I opened it, Sophie was standing on my porch. My granddaughter, 11 years old, wearing her winter coat and a nervous expression. Sophie. I looked past her, expecting to see a car in the driveway, expecting Brian or Megan or someone. But she was alone. How did you get here? I rode my bike. It's only like 2 miles. She looked down at her feet. Can I come in, Grandma? I stepped back and let her in. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. Does your mother know you're here? I asked. Sophie shook her head. I told her I was going to Emma's house. She doesn't really check. I should have called Megan immediately. I should have done the responsible thing. But instead, I led my granddaughter into the kitchen and made her hot chocolate, the way I always used to, with extra marshmallows. She sat at the table, my table, the one her father grew up eating at, and wrapped her hands around the mug. Why weren't you at Christmas, Grandma? She asked. Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. I wasn't invited, sweetheart. Sophie's face scrunched up in confusion. But you're always at Christmas. Christmas is at your house. Not this year. Mom said you were busy. She said you had other plans. I felt something shift in my chest. She lied. Megan had lied to my grandchildren about why I wasn't there. She hadn't just excluded me, she'd made it seem like my choice. I didn't have other plans, I said carefully. I wanted to see you more than anything. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I knew Mom was lying. She always does this thing with her voice when she's not telling the truth. And you never miss Christmas. Ever. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to put this child in the middle of adult conflicts. But I also couldn't lie to her. Sometimes, I said slowly, grown-ups make choices that don't make sense to kids. And sometimes those choices hurt people. Your mom and I. We see things differently. She doesn't like you, Sophie said matter-of-factly. She's always saying stuff to Dad about you. About how you try to control things and how you make her feel guilty. I took a breath. How does that make you feel, hearing those things? Bad. Because I love you, Grandma. And I missed you at Christmas. It wasn't the same without you. She got up from her chair and hugged me. This skinny, brave 11-year-old who had ridden her bike 2 miles in the cold to find out why her grandmother had disappeared. I held her and I cried again, but these tears felt different. These tears felt like something loosening instead of something breaking. We talked for an hour. I let her tell me about Christmas, about her presents, about her brother being annoying and her cousins being loud. I let her be a normal kid talking to her grandmother, because that's what she needed. And maybe what I needed too. When her phone buzzed with a text from Megan, I knew our time was running out. I have to go, Sophie said. But Grandma, I'm going to talk to Dad. I'm going to tell him this isn't fair. You don't have to fight my battles, sweetheart. I'm not fighting your battle. I'm fighting mine. You're my grandmother. I should get to see you. After she left, I sat in my quiet house and thought about what had just happened. This child, this young girl on the edge of becoming a teenager, had done what no adult in my family had the courage to do. She'd asked questions. She'd sought the truth. She'd shown up. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was the sign I needed. The conversation with Brian happened 2 days later. He called me, sounding defensive before I even said anything. Sophie told me she came to see you. She did. Mom, I'm sorry about Christmas. It just got away from me. Megan's family needed us, and Brian, I interrupted. I'm going to say something, and I need you to let me finish. Silence. Then, okay. I have spent the last 6 years making myself smaller so that Megan would be comfortable. I've changed my traditions. I've reduced my expectations. I've asked for less and less, hoping that if I was easy enough, accommodating enough, I'd still be allowed to be part of my grandchildren's lives. But here's what I've learned. It doesn't matter how small I make myself. I'll never be small enough for her. And I'm tired of trying. Mom. I'm not finished. I'm not going to beg for invitations. I'm not going to fight with your wife or put your children in the middle. But I'm also not going to pretend that being excluded from Christmas, and then lied about to my own grandchildren, is acceptable. It's not. And the fact that you allowed it tells me something about where I stand with you. That's not fair, Brian said. His voice was tight. You don't know how hard it is to balance everyone's needs. Megan has expectations, her family has expectations, and you have expectations. I expect to see my grandchildren on Christmas. That's my expectation. If that's too much for your wife to handle, then I feel sorry for all of us. I hung up. It wasn't satisfying. It didn't fix anything. But it was honest, and that felt like something. In the weeks that followed, I did a lot of thinking. I thought about what I wanted, not just what I was willing to accept. I thought about the difference between being a good mother and being a doormat. I thought about the years I had left and how I wanted to spend them. I started making changes. Small ones at first. I redecorated the living room, new furniture, new arrangement, things Tom and I had talked about doing but never did. I joined a book club at the library. I started walking every morning, even when it was cold. I also made a decision about my family. I would be available, but I wouldn't chase. I would love my grandchildren fiercely, but I wouldn't beg for access. I would tell the truth, but I wouldn't wage war. Sophie texts me now. Little things, memes she thinks are funny, pictures of her school projects, complaints about her brother. It's not much, but it's a thread. It's connection. It's proof that I haven't been completely erased. Brian and I have talked a few times. The conversations are awkward, careful. He's defensive about Megan. I'm defensive about myself. We haven't found our way back to easy yet, and maybe we never will. But he's trying. I think Sophie's confrontation shook something loose in him, made him see what he'd allowed to happen. Kristen apologized. She came to my house in January, sat at my kitchen table, and cried. I should have stood up for you, she said. I should have said something. I was so worried about keeping the peace that I let them exclude you, and that's on me. I forgave her. Not because what she did was okay, but because I love her, and because carrying anger is exhausting. I'm 68 years old. I don't have the energy for grudges. Megan and I haven't spoken. I don't think we ever will, not really. Some relationships can't be repaired because they were never solid to begin with. I was tolerated, not accepted. And now that I've stopped making myself tolerable, there's nothing left. But here's what I know, sitting in my living room on a February evening, finally at peace. I am not disposable. I am not optional. I am a woman who raised 2 children and buried a husband and survived 68 years on this earth. And I deserve to be treated with dignity. Christmas will come again next year. I don't know yet what it will look like. Maybe I'll host again, for whoever chooses to come. Maybe I'll volunteer somewhere, spend the day giving to people who need it. Maybe I'll be alone, and that will be okay too, because alone isn't the same as abandoned when you've chosen it for yourself. The photos from this year's Christmas are still on Megan's Facebook. I haven't looked at them again. But sometimes I think about the 23rd picture she posted. The group shot, everyone smiling, the one where I'm not there. And I think about a different picture. One that doesn't exist yet. One where I'm surrounded by people who want me there. People who don't see me as an obligation or an inconvenience. People who understand that love isn't about grand gestures once a year. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's hard. Sophie showed up for me on December 30th. Rode her bike 2 miles in the cold because she knew something was wrong and she wanted the truth. That's family. That's what family is supposed to be. And maybe that's where I start over. Not from the Christmas I lost, but from the connection I still have. One 11-year-old girl with extra marshmallows in her hot chocolate and enough courage to ask the questions no one else would. Some traditions end. Some families change. Some truths hurt so badly you think you'll never recover. But then a doorbell rings. And a child appears. And you remember that being forgotten by some people doesn't mean you've stopped mattering to everyone. It just means you finally know who truly loves you back.